Once upon a time, in a kingdom far, far away, there was an ambitious princess. The princess was the prettiest, smartest, coolest, fairest skinned in all the land, and wanted nothing more than to make her dreams come true. She's me. So, the princess left the kingdom and set out to become a performer. Little did she know her journey would lead to many dangers. A moat filled with snapping alligators, a fire-breathing dragon, and an evil witch. These challenges are symbolic of those faced by students pursuing careers in the arts. In our current education system, students are led to believe that creative lifestyles are only fairy tales, meant for those with fairy godmothers, genies, and talking animal friends. Today, we will look at the standards placed on K through 12 and beyond, the funding that goes into them, and finally, how we can slay our own dragons. As soon as the princess ventured to the outskirts of the kingdom, she was met by a moat filled with snapping alligators. The alligators demanded she take a standardized test in order to leave the kingdom. Unsure of what else to do, the princess complied. Similar to the snapping alligators, higher education requires standardized testing for prospective students to leave the kingdom or graduate. Ken Robinson, British author, speaker, and international advisor on education in the arts, states in his 2006 TED Talk, the whole purpose of public education throughout the world is to produce university professors. In our current education system today, standardized test scores are paramount to a student's other achievements and abilities. According to a study performed by Dr. Kyung-hee Kim, an associate professor of educational psychology at the College of William & Mary, the average performance in creative thinking tests has declined in the United States over the last 2 decades. Kim studied almost 300,000 children and adults since 1974 and concluded that creativity scores rise with age until around 5th grade, then remain static or decline during high school. Since 1990, creativity scores have declined consistently across all ages, but especially in kindergarten through 3rd grade. Ken Robinson states that academic ability has really come to dominate our view of intelligence because the universities designed the system in their image. The whole system of public education around the world is a protracted process of university entrance. Once the princess was permitted to leave the kingdom, she was met by a fire-breathing dragon who was ruled by money. There was nothing more attractive to him than a shiny coin or a crisp dollar bill that he could keep all to himself. The princess realized that the fire-breathing dragon was a major roadblock on her path to becoming a performer. Similarly, arts programs and creative students are continuously singed by the power of the almighty dollar. Schools that achieve overall higher testing scores are more likely to get more money. For example, according to Van Thompson's article in The Classroom, a school that consistently fails to meet adequate yearly progress standards may not be able to access some grants and other forms of funding. After just 5 years of failure, the school can be closed altogether. And for this reason, great schools will do almost anything to ensure they get the bulk of the state's money, flipping core curriculum on its head to almost identically match the standards of the annual tests, opting to turn a blind eye to creative subjects that aren't required. Furthermore, teachers' salaries are also linked to schools' funding. Teachers that have students who perform better on standardized tests are more likely to receive pay raises. A charter school in Illinois, for instance, paid 43 of its teachers up to $113,400 when students showed improvement on tests or did well in science fairs. Adding more fuel to the fire, in the Trump administration's 2019 budget, they plan to cut the National Endowment for the Arts, which, according to Mark Skora, the president and chief executive of Opera America, is the only funder in the country that makes arts grants for every congressional district. If the NEA is cut by the Trump administration, many schools will lose their arts programs. 54% of their block grant funds goes to low-income areas, while 25% goes to rural communities. Without the NEA, many school districts, similar to many of those in West Virginia, will not be able to have sustainable arts programs. To add to the burden, according to the American for the Arts, in December of 2015, Congress passed bipartisan legislation to reauthorize the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which, although it is to be upheld through the fiscal year of 2020, it is up to each individual state to uphold the policy and allow for new opportunities in arts education to be brought forth. And that being said, according to the Charleston Gazette on March 28, 2018, Governor Jim Justice signed House Bill 4006, which dissolved the Department of Education and the Arts, as well as the position of the Cabinet Secretary that led it. Since then, the Department of Arts and Culture and History has been created, but the legislation failed to keep the agencies under the pre-existing branch, and doesn't mention other programs and agencies under or supported by the department. Furthermore, while it stated that funding would not be affected, the article states that roughly $1 million in savings could be quantified immediately. For this reason, it is imperative that the newer department be held to the same standards, be supplied the same, if not more, funding, and maintain the importance of creativity and the arts in a student's education. The real burden, however, is that standardized tests do not accurately measure a student's academic or talent-based worth. By viewing the potential of a student based upon their score of one test, they're losing the ability to prove themselves or push their potential to its limits. A student that may not be the best test taker may be the most talented artist you've ever seen, but standardized testing fails to recognize that. For a princess who yearns to continue pursuing theater in college, she cannot just sing and dance her way into the program. She must first apply academically before being granted an audition at most higher education institutions. So what is a princess to do? Sadly, more often than not, students are being educated out of their creative capacities. As aforementioned, Dr. Kyung-hee Kim's study proves that after a few years of schooling, children decline creatively. Ken Robinson states that as children grow up, we start to educate them progressively from the waist up. And then we focus on their heads, and slightly to one side. Teachers use methods of learning that only cater to some, and students are taught that there is only one right way. Because of this, making mistakes becomes stigmatized. We are taught, as Julian Astle from the Royal Society of Arts writes, to stop questioning the world, to go with the flow, and that there is only one right answer for every question. In the classroom, mistakes should be praised, not looked down on. We learn more from our mistakes than we do our successes. Creativity lies greatly in making mistakes. Sometimes that's where true creation and imagination begin. Despite the princess's encounters with the money-hungry dragon, she fought to preserve her creative ambition. She sang to her animal friends, danced with villagers, and went to speech tournaments in far-off kingdoms. Until one day, she came across an evil witch who said, "I'm sure this journey has made you tired and hungry. Oh, here, take a safe route with one bite of this shiny apple and you'll turn into something sensible like an accountant." Luckily, smarter than she seemed, the princess turned down the poison apple and kept on her path. Creative classes in the school setting are often less valued or treated as illegitimate. For example, if the princess's teachers often try to remind her that a good little princess spends her time on more sensible subjects than music or theater classes. However, this is not just an issue on the school level. All over society, careers in the arts are valued less than those that guarantee a steady job. Those who have creative lives in the arts are ultimately paid less, aren't guaranteed consistent work and are often looked at as less than because they don't have a real job. In fact, I recently researched various salaries of different professions on EDTalks, a website where employed workers can report their salary and other users pool salaries to report from job advertisements. I found that reported salaries for actors range anywhere from $20 to $100 an hour, while university professor salaries were anywhere from $60,000 to $80,000 a year. Not only are university professors much better off financially as it stands, but actors' pay is not a guaranteed rate. Actors, all performers for that matter, are not employed year-round. Not to mention, every salary I found under doctor was well over $100,000. Though somewhat shaken by the evil witch, the princess persevered. She realized that she was her own knight in shining armor. Similarly, we student artists need to be our own advocates. If we do not take ourselves seriously or request respect, we can never expect it. As long as we hold strong to what we find important, it can truly never be taken away from us. And that being said, a student's education must be balanced and diverse. As Julian Astle states, schools need to provide a rich and broad curriculum that includes the visual and performing arts. Creative subjects in the school setting must be treated with equal status as academic subjects. As Ken Robinson says in his TED Talk, creativity now is as important as literacy, and we should treat it with the same status. By enforcing positivity toward creative lifestyles in grade schools, students will grow up with a respect and appreciation for creativity that will last a lifetime. The fact is, creativity exists in many different forms. Unlike the one right answer to a proposed question in a classroom, there isn't a right definition. There are countless ways for schools to embrace creativity, from proposing open-ended questions to simply recognizing the importance of having a creative mind. Standardized tests are not the way to gauge a student's worth or a school's merit for funding. Students are so much more than a number and hold in their hands the ability to shape the future. So their education needs to be a well-rounded one, allowing them to reach their full potential. The princess is so close to living her dream because she never gave up. And now, she isn't looking back. She is certain that she will live happily ever after. Thank you.